Hi, Matthews Superstars. It's Mrs. R coming to you from Matthews Elementary. How are you guys doing this week? We have some super fun things for you next week as we look forward to Nevada Reading Week. We're going to have a whole playlist of videos that your teacher will be able to access and play for you every day. So we hope that next week you take some time out with your class to stop, drop, and read by using these videos. I'm super excited because the guest readers we have are out of this world, super sorry. So let's see where we are. We were reading Eerie Elementary. The school is alive. And where we left off was on chapter 5. Chapter 5 is called The Skeleton. The double doors flew open, knocking Sam to the floor. Then they slammed shut again. He was still trapped inside the school. Ouch, Sam yelled. Everyone knows you can't get hurt in a dream, so this must be real. I forgot to tell you where we left off last time. Sam was locked in the school. It was after hours, and if you remember, all the lockers had clang, clang, clang shut on him. So this is where we take up this time. He needed to escape. The school was coming to life all around him. Sam ran into his classroom. He threw his hands against the large window. He was hoping to see anyone who could help him. All he saw was a giant oak tree blowing in the wind. But it wasn't windy. Sam saw other trees, and none of those trees were blowing, and the leaves on the ground weren't wishing around at all. The only thing moving was the tree. Could the tree be alive, Sam thought? Smash! The glass window shattered. Sam fell to the floor as one of the tree's long, twisted branches came crashing through. It wrapped around Sam's leg. Sam began hitting at the branch. Whack, whack, whack. Finally, the branch's grip loosened. Sam was able to crawl away. Behind him, he heard the branch scraping across the floor like fingernails on a chalkboard. The tree was reaching for him, trying to pull him back. He pushed his way through fallen desks. He stumbled back into the hallway. Pieces of glass crunched beneath his feet. Then, clang, clang, clang. All the locker doors were slamming open and shut all at once. All the classroom doors were doing the same thing. But worst of all was what Sam saw next. A figure stood at the end of the hallway. It had a body like a skeleton. Lights flashed and doors clanged, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there perfectly still, staring at Sam. Chapter 6. The danger is real. All of a sudden, the figure started running towards Sam. It was Mr. Nakobe. What's happening? Sam shouted. No time to explain. Get down, Mr. Nakobe yelled. One of the hallway fire hoses had come to life. It was like a long octopus tentacle. The hose crashed into the old man and knocked him to the floor. Then it came for Sam. Sam ducked as the fire hose whipped above his head. Blam! The heavy metal nozzle slammed into the lockers. That thing almost hit me, Sam gasped. The fire hose wasn't done. It kept whipping through the air. Wrestle it, Mr. Nakobe shouted. Are you nuts? Sam screamed. Grab onto it, Mr. Nakobe yelled from down on the floor. Sam gulped. The fire hose whipped around again. Sam leapt up in the air just as the hose flew beneath him. He wrapped both his arms around it and held on tight. Wouldn't that be scary if the fire hose came at you? Ah, he screamed. Tie the hose, Mr. Nakobe yelled. Sam grabbed the hose and tugged. He used all his might to pull the hose back around itself. He knotted it like a giant shoelace. The monster's fire hose shook. It was choking. The hose crashed to the ground. Whoomp. Sam smacked against the cold hallway floor. And just like that, everything stopped. The wild fire hose, the banging lockers, and the flashing lights. This school hasn't been this active in a very long time, Mr. Nakobe said, getting to his feet. Here's a picture of, do you see Mr. Nakobe and Sam? Sam blinked twice. What? Never mind. It's late. You should go home. That was Mr. Nakobe. But the school, it's alive. I call that title spotting when you see the title in the book, the story itself. Sam said, I don't understand. Mr. Nakobe handed Sam his backpack. Get home now, he ordered. Sam wanted more answers, but even more than answers, he wanted out of the school. He turned on his heels, shoved open the now unlocked double doors, and ran home. He didn't stop once. Where have you been? Sam's mother yelled as Sam came running through the door. I was worried sick. Sam threw his backpack onto the kitchen floor. He kicked off his sneakers. One nearly hit his mom on the head. The other bounced off a cabinet. You wouldn't believe it, Sam said. In between gulping for air, he began to tell the tale. First, I almost got eaten by quicksand. Then a tree broke through the classroom window. And Sam, his mom said, cutting him off, tell me the real reason you are late. Sam sighed. Of course she wasn't going to believe him. Antonia and Lucy had not believed him either. At last, Sam said, hall monitor duty. Poor Sam. Chapter 7. Believe Me. I, Peter Pan, challenged the friendly pirate Noodler to a fight, Antonio yelled. He swung an invisible sword through the air. It was Tuesday morning, and Sam, Antonio, and Lucy were walking to school. They were practicing their Peter Pan lines. But Sam couldn't focus on his lines. He could not stop thinking about what had happened the night before. Antonio laughed. Sam, you have the worst part in the play. You only have a few lines toward the end. And really, who wants to be a friendly pirate anyway? Huh? Sam said. Sam's not even paying attention, Lucy moaned. This play is going to be a disaster. Everything is going to go wrong. Antonio patted his pocket, smiling. Not as long as I have my lucky sandwich. Antonio and Sam had been friends since kindergarten, and Antonio had always carried a peanut butter and jelly sandwich around in his pocket. That could get messy. So it looks like the sandwich is in a sandwich bag, so that's all good. Sometimes he carried the same sandwich around for weeks. Sam thought it was a little bit disgusting, but also a little bit awesome. Sam stopped walking. Guys, I really need to tell you something. Sam looked around to make sure no one was nearby. He pulled his friends in close. Remember the quicksand I told you about yesterday? I know you didn't believe me, but after school, more weird stuff happened. I fell asleep while on hall monitor duty. I believe that, Antonio joked. Listen, Sam said, when I woke up, the school was going crazy. I was attacked by the oak tree. Then Mr. Nakobe saved me, but I think he might be a bad guy or something. He's super weird. Antonio frowned. You're losing your mind, Lucy agreed. I'm starting to worry about you, Sam. Sam ran his hand through his hair and said, just wait until we get to school. You'll see there's a broken window and busted lockers, and the fire hose is tied in a big knot. When they got to school, Sam rushed his friends When they got to school, Sam rushed past his friends and up the front steps. What he saw blew his mind. Everything was back to normal. It was like nothing had happened. The fire hose was wound up and the lockers were closed. No, Sam whispered. This doesn't make any sense. Antonio gently punched Sam in the arm. You should really get some more sleep. Your nightmares sound serious. Ring! The morning bell rang and everyone began filing into class. The huge window in Miss Grinker's class wasn't broken. Even the oak tree looked normal. This was a regular Tuesday morning, but not for Sam. Sam wanted answers, and he thought he knew where to find them. But first, Sam, hurry up, Lucy said, running into class. Sam groaned. He had to check the halls and then get to class too. His answers would have to wait. Next is chapter 8. We'll get to that next week. It's called Into the Darkness. Here's a picture of the regular school hallway. See how the lockers are closed? What do you think is going on? Is the school magical? We don't know. Is the school haunted? What about Mr. Nakobe? Oh, you guys, I have so many ideas swirling around in my head. I hope you do too. I'll see you next week with another video. Actually, next week, we're going to have some special guest readers reading from other books. But in 2 weeks, I'll see you and let's find out if the school is alive. Have a great week, superstars.